Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping into the incredibly high-stakes world of pharmaceutical distribution. Every single day, millions of people rely on life-saving medications arriving safely at their local pharmacies and hospitals. But maintaining the integrity of that entire supply chain, it's a monumental task. So today, we're going to explore exactly how the healthcare industry maps out its defense against a very real, very dangerous threat, and how the SASB standards provide the essential blueprint for this defense.
Okay, let's dive into this. 10%. I mean, that is just a staggering number. According to the World Health Organization, it's estimated that counterfeit drugs represent more than 10% of the pharmaceutical supply chain in low and middle-income countries. And make no mistake, this issue of fake or substandard medication is a significant risk in developed economies too. We aren't just talking about a few bad actors here. We are talking about a systemic, global threat to human health that requires an absolutely ironclad defense.
To see how companies are fighting back, we're going to look at our blueprint for today. We'll start with the fake drug threat, then look at our 3 pillars of defense: tracking the tech, qualifying suppliers, and sounding the alarm. Finally, we'll wrap up with the transparency takeaway.
Let's start with Section 1, the fake drug threat. Before we can really understand the defense systems, we need to clearly identify the exact enemy the industry is up against. So under the SASB framework, counterfeit products actually have a very strict definition. We're talking about drugs sold under a product name without proper authorization, where the source identity is intentionally mislabeled to make you think the imitation drug is the authentic, approved product. And the crucial thing you need to take away from this is that this severe risk applies to absolutely everything. Counterfeiting targets those highly expensive brand name products, sure, but it equally targets everyday generic meds. Basically, if there's a demand for a medication, there's a risk of a counterfeit trying to fill it. What's honestly terrifying here is the sheer variety of how these fakes present themselves. On one hand, you've got dangerous chemical tampering, products that completely lack the active ingredient, have way too much or too little of it, or literally contain the wrong active ingredient entirely. But on the other hand, the chemistry might be totally harmless, but it's concealed inside highly convincing fake packaging. Both scenarios are deeply dangerous and require entirely different methods to detect. And that brings us to the SASB standards, specifically for healthcare distributors. To give investors and the public confidence that a company is managing these massive risks, the standards outline a specific disclosure topic. It's HCDI 260A, simply titled Counterfeit Drugs. Think of this as a vital toolkit. It demands the companies clearly report their defense strategies and risk management protocols to investors. It basically takes all that invisible, behind-the-scenes security and turns it into measurable, transparent data. Let's move to and see how this builds with metric 1, tracking the tech. This is where the digital war against counterfeits is really waged. The absolute core of this defense is traceability. You can think of traceability as a permanent digital fingerprint for a medication as it makes its journey through the supply chain. Distributors have to disclose the specific methods and technologies they use to track identifying information. We're talking the precise chemical composition, the supplier, the exact production date and location, and the entire processing history. From raw material sourcing all the way to retail, the product is constantly monitored. Now, to maintain that traceability, distributors rely on a massive technological arsenal. The SASB standard asks companies to disclose their use of things like RFID tagging and advanced barcode systems that keep the physical product fully serialized and safe. But it's not just the tech, it's the methods too. Are they doing strict vendor inspections and supply chain audits? Are they sharing those audits through industry partnerships? Or are they utilizing the safest method of all, purchasing directly from the original manufacturer? But hey, technology alone isn't going to cut it, right? The standard also meticulously tracks human-level safeguards. Because at the end of the day, a barcode can only do so much if the person scanning it doesn't really know what to look for. So companies are asked to detail their training programs for pharmacists and supply chain employees. They also have to disclose how they coordinate with law enforcement and use customer feedback tools. People are literally just as crucial to this perimeter as the software. Which perfectly sets up metric 2, qualifying suppliers. You definitely can't have a safe supply chain if you're letting bad actors into the network in the first place. And this brilliantly illustrates the intense due diligence required before a supplier is ever allowed to provide a single pill. It's a chronological journey that turns simple compliance into an escalating fortress of supplier vetting. Step 1 starts with rigorous questionnaires and strict codes of conduct. If a supplier passes that, they face Step 2, intensive physical inspections and audits. Finally, Step 3 requires elite third-party certifications for good manufacturing practices, or GMP, alongside quality management system certifications. It's an absolute gauntlet designed to weed out anyone who isn't operating at the highest possible standards of safety.
It's also worth noting that during this intense qualification process, the SASB standards give distributors the space to briefly discuss their broader screening requirements related to ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues. Because honestly, a supplier that cuts corners on environmental compliance or labor practices is very often a supplier that might cut corners on product safety. It's all connected. Now we arrive at the final line of defense, metric 3, sounding the alarm, because despite the best technology and the strictest vetting, a counterfeit threat may occasionally breach the perimeter. When that happens, how fast and how effectively a company reacts is literally a matter of life and death. Think about the massive blast radius of a compromised drug actually entering the market. The SASB standard requires companies to detail their exact processes for alerting a vast interconnected network. We're talking immediate communication to the patients relying on the drug, the physicians prescribing it, upstream suppliers, wholesalers, retail pharmacies, and hospitals. Every single node in the healthcare network has to be informed instantly when a risk is detected. Transparency here is absolutely vital. Companies must explicitly disclose their specific alert protocols. This means detailing the recommended actions they issue to all those business partners and customers to minimize the risks. Furthermore, they have to lay out their specific mechanisms for executing rapid alert systems and product recalls. Investors, and society at large for that matter, need to know that if the worst happens, the distributor has an immediate, well-rehearsed plan to pull that dangerous product out of the market.
So the crucial point is how this all weaves together. Let's look at our final section, the transparency takeaway. When we look back at the SASB topic summary table for counterfeit drugs, we can see these 3 pillars clearly laid out as discussion and analysis metrics. By forcing companies to transparently report on their traceability tech, their supplier due diligence, and their rapid alert systems, the standard does something really amazing. It allows investors to accurately judge a distributor's operational resilience and risk profile. But more importantly, it forces the entire industry to constantly elevate its defense mechanisms against counterfeiters. The next time you pick up a prescription from the pharmacy, take a second to look at the barcode on that bottle. Think about the invisible fortress of RFID tags, GMP certifications, and rapid alert protocols standing between you and a dangerous counterfeit. The SASB standards ensure those systems aren't just working, but are publicly accountable. So I'll leave you with this to ponder. In an increasingly complex global market, just how transparent is the journey of your medication? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the right questions.